Story number 1. There is something horrible at the lake. When I was younger, something happened that made me fear thunderstorms even into adulthood. Something that my parents are certain was a dream. But with the rash of missing pets and now 2 children, I feel as if I should write this down to warn people, even if no one believes me. I was around 10 and my family pulled money together to rent a cabin by the lake. All my aunts and uncles and cousins shared it. It was rather crowded, but I really didn't mind. At first, it was the best 2 weeks of my life. We could just run down to the lake whenever we wanted. We went fishing from the docks, but for some reason my favorite pastime was collecting fresh water mussels. I wasn't sure of the type of mussels, but the locals hated them. Apparently they were a new invasive species and did a great deal of ecological damage, so they encouraged us kids to pull them from the lake in buckets. Every day we collected them from the little lake beach we had in front of the cabin. The mussel shells would cut our feet if we stepped on them running into the lake. We dumped them into a plastic kiddie pool that had a crack in it that no one had gotten around to throwing away. One of the adults must have been tossing them away when they got dried out because every morning the kiddie pool was either empty or almost empty. That was how I spent my 2-week vacation with my cousins. We ran around in the way only children could, screaming and causing problems. We ate nothing but junk food, and at night, being so tired from our daily chaos, we slept the moment the sun went down. I wish my entire life could be just that. Napping whenever, eating whenever, no homework or any kind of responsibilities, but all good things coming to an end. The night before we were set to leave, my cousins thought it was a good idea to let me watch my first horror movie beyond a PG-13 rating. It was some slasher film I still haven't found the name of, low budget and poorly made. But when you're young, everything is real to you. The slasher was killing people in the woods in the movie, and our cabin was surrounded by woods. For the rest of the day, I refused to look at the trees, fearing I would see a dark figure of a man holding a bloody knife waiting for me or my family. My mother was angry for us watching such a movie, but in a way glad for it. Some pets had gone missing, and on the other side of the lake, a little girl had gone missing for the first week we arrived. It was something she didn't tell us until years later, but she thought if we were scared of the woods, we wouldn't go out at night. At least, not until they found out what wild animal was responsible for the missing pets and the girl. I was in bed sharing a room with my cousin who was dead asleep. The fear of the slasher in the woods and the fear of having to go home the next day kept me awake. No matter how hard I tried to sleep, I just couldn't. The hours passed and I finally gave up. It was muggy in the room and I kicked off my thin sheets, went to the window to crack it open, and got some fresh air. We kept it closed because the screen had fallen off and there was nothing to keep the bugs out. Thought a few minutes wouldn't do much harm. I looked out, shuddering at the sight of the trees in the dark, low rumbling in the distance signaling a storm coming. My mom did say it would storm and cool down for tomorrow. The rain might help with the muggy heat, but sometimes it gets muggier after a storm. I sighed, feeling a slight breeze in my face. I didn't want to go back home. I wanted to stay at the cabin, slasher killer in the forest and all. I was about to close the window when another breeze came, a stronger one carrying a ghastly smell. A rotting fish smell. The first day there, we had caught a fish, a small one on a rocky edge of the lake. We tried to release it back into the lake, but it jumped out of my cousin's hand and in between rocks we couldn't reach. The sight was funny at first, but by the 3rd day the stench was so bad, we didn't go fishing there again. It was like that smell, but as if 100 fish had died. My toes almost curled from the smell. It was a wonder my cousins didn't wake up from the stench drifting up. After the smell came the sound. A soft crunching. A sound that made my skin prickle in fear. I had never heard anything like it before. Maybe like how a dog chews away on a bone. Teeth on something hard biting and chewing away. It scared me, sure, but it was so weird I had to look down and around trying to figure out what on earth was going on. That was when I saw it. Under the window was our kiddie pool we had filled up with mussels one last time. A dark figure I couldn't make out hunched over the pile grabbing at the mussels, then shoving them into its mouth. It was so dark I could only make out that it sort of looked human-shaped and wet. I leaned out the window a little more, trying to get a better look. Whatever it was must have heard me as its head turned around mid-grab to stare up at me. thunder rumbled louder as I stared down at the face of a monster. Yellow eyes glowed in dark, empty-looking eye sockets. Face so dark and black, I couldn't make out the features. But I could make out the rows and rows of teeth when it opened its mouth to shove another handful of muscles in and crunch away at them. I froze, unable to believe what I was seeing. It didn't seem real. A slasher killer was believable because I was just a person stalking others in the dark. I had never believed in monsters or ghouls. Even at the gullible age I was oddly grown up when it came to such subjects, and yet I was looking down at a monster. It stared at me, never breaking eye contact. While still looking up at me, I could see its mouth wide open and smiling as it started to walk towards the cabin. I was on the second floor, and our first floor doors were locked. If I got inside, my uncle and aunt had camped out in the living room for the night. They could stop it, or at least slow it down if it got inside the cabin. I felt safe for a few seconds, listening to wet footsteps from the ground below. But that feeling faded when the creature reached its web-clawed hand onto the cabin and started to pull itself up. Yellow eyes still staring, teeth still smiling. So slowly it crept closer to me, climbing the side of the cabin. Each time its hand hit the side of the cabin to pull itself up, I could hear a sickening wet slapping. I should have screamed. Should have woken up my cousin. I should have just shut the window. But my body had just shut down. Couldn't move. I could only watch as the thing got closer and listen to rumbles of thunder threatening a storm. The smell was getting worse as it crept ever closer. My heart was beating so fast. I started to get dizzy. My vision started to fade. I willed myself to move from the window, but nothing of myself would move. I couldn't pull myself away from the sight. As the creature climbed, I could hear it. It was making a sound that haunted my nightmares since. A low, excited exhale of breath. Closer it got, until if I wanted, I could reach out and touch it. I could make out its face a bit better. It was flat and as dark as the night. No nose to speak of, just those horrible eyes and teeth. I felt the clawed hands come onto the window, still right next to mine. The fish smell almost overpowered the rest of my senses, but I could still hear that awful sound as it opened its mouth right in front of my face. I was staring down, directly down its throat, ready to have my face bitten off by those countless teeth. A crash of thunder shook the cabin. It was so sudden, I was snapped out of my trance. I screamed and fell back as the world went white, blinding my vision. I grabbed the window and slammed it down, finding no clawed hands on the sill. I still saw the top of the creature's head, but I didn't stick around. I ran screaming from the room and right next door, banging on it, begging someone to come and save me. Soon, the entire cabin was awake, and I just sat in the hallway sobbing about the monster. No one took me seriously. My cousin was very upset I had woken him up. Everyone blamed the storm for suddenly scaring me awake or giving me nightmares. I still refused to go back to my room. I stayed in the living room with my aunt and uncle. I almost settled down after they blocked all the doors with chairs. At least they were humoring me that much. I was so stressed out, I didn't even think about the first floor windows. For the rest of the night, I stayed awake listening to the storm, but I swore between the thunder I heard that excited sound. I never really spoke about this to my family. I went about my life, but any time a storm rolls in, I'm forced to relive those few minutes. I've kept an eye on the news in the area where the cabin is. It's been pretty normal until recently. Now a boy and girl are missing. I have a feeling more are gonna go missing if someone doesn't do something. I have some money saved, so I decided to go back to the area. I can't rent the same cabin we stayed in, but I'm gonna go back to that lake to see if I can do anything. I don't know why that monster didn't eat me that night. Maybe it was so full I wasn't worth the trouble. But if I can't do anything to protect this area, please, lock your doors. Keep your windows shut and pets inside. And if you hear strange noises outside, don't look. Story number 2, the mountains of Colorado. I don't even know how it happened. It just kind of did. All you should really know is that out of my 5 friends, I'm the only one that made it out alive. My friends and I decided to go to our log cabin mansion in the cold and icy mountains of Colorado. I don't think that this cabin was ours, because it was actually my friend Michael's parents' cabin. Call us childish, but we decided to go in the middle of winter for even more snow. My car didn't fit more than 4 people, so Alexis had to drive herself and 2 of my friends to the cabin instead of just coming with us to the car that she drove over to my house in. Although I didn't like it, there was nothing I could do. I mean, I couldn't just make my car magically fit 6 people. We got to the mountains in about 2.5 hours after I began driving. Now, despite what people may think, the mountains do have some places to stay warm inside so you don't freeze to death. Never thought I'd have to use one of them, but after about an hour of waiting for Alexis to respond to my text, asking her what was taking so long, my friends and I went inside the bus stop looking thing and were immediately brought with warmth. Alexis finally showed up about 20 minutes after we went in, and I asked her what happened and why she didn't respond to my text. "Sorry, Belle, I forgot my phone at your house and had to turn back to get it." "Okay, so how come when you got your phone you didn't see my text, "Well, when I got my phone I was in such a hurry to get back that I didn't even take a second to check it. I just took it and ran back to my car." I felt like crap for scolding her on something that made sense, but I mean, could you blame me? "Let's just get to the cabin, guys," Blake said. "Yeah," said Levi. "Yeah, I guess we should," and I agreed with them. On our hike up to the cabin, Jessica realized she left her purse back at the bus stop looking place, and Blake said that he'd help her go back to get her bag. We all made kissy faces, and I even think that Levi said, "You can get her, buddy." We all knew that Blake liked Jessica, although he tried to say that he didn't love her, and while we were doing what we did, Blake was just kind of saying, yeah, while he walked Jessica to the area where we were all sure they would kiss. We kept hiking and saw some weird signs saying stuff like, "The Lord shall bless this cursed place," and "They're waiting," and "Lord, please save our souls." Now, I get some people who are religious try to spread the word of God or whatever, but I felt like this was a bit much, right? We all just kind of groaned in annoyance as more signs like the first 2 keep popping up. "Who the hell took the time to put all these signs up?" Levi said. To be honest, I was wondering the same thing. Like, who would take the time out of their day to put some dumb signs up that spread the word of God? Looking back on the trip, we should have just turned around and walked back to the car. We're nearly to the cabin when I see a figure behind us. "Jessica and Blake!" "Hey guys," I call out to them. "Had fun?" Levi asked while kissing the air. Like before, both Jessica and Blake ignore Levi and just groan a half-hearted "hello" when they get closer to him. Blake seemed fine, but something about Jessica seemed worried. "Can we go to the cabin now?" Jessica says. "Like, right now?" Sure," Levi and I say at the same time. I felt like I should have asked her what was wrong, but deep down I knew that even if I did ask her, she wouldn't have told me anything that happened. We finally reached the door of the cabin, took a deep breath, and entered in. It was beautiful inside. How Michael's parents afforded this, I have no idea. "Holy shit, guys," Alexis says. "Holy shit indeed," Michael says. The inside of the cabin had one of those bearskin rugs, beautiful cabin-looking chandeliers, 2 stories, beautiful couches and pillows, and even a 24-inch flat-screen TV. Words can't describe how I felt when I entered the cabin. Jessica and Blake say that they're gonna go explore the cabin, while Alexis takes a shower. Michael goes off and does whatever Michael does, and Levi says that he's gonna go check out which room he wants to sleep in. Now it's just me and Peyton. Peyton was always an odd girl, so she said that she'd explore the basement. The fucking basement of all things. I just kind of tell her to have fun in the basement. Now it's just me. I don't really know what to do, so I decided to watch TV. I was halfway through the newest episode of Friends when I hear Peyton call for us from downstairs. "Guys, you should check this out," she says. I go to get my other friends and we head downstairs. Peyton is already waiting for us and we head down the steps and says to just follow her. What happened? And why do you want us? Is what we keep asking. But whenever we did, she just raised her hand and says to follow. When we finally reached an open window, she said, "This is what you needed to see." "You wanted us to see a window that's open," Levi said. "How'd you know open windows were my favorite?" Blake says. "Michael's parents most likely forgot to close the window when they last left," I tell her. No, she says. "When I was checking out the basement..." She's cut off by Levi. "You wanted us to check out the basement of all places?" he says. She groans and continues. "When I was checking out the basement, I came here first because I thought I saw something move in the corner of my eye. When I came here, the window was open and I shut it closed. I began to walk again, and 8 minutes later, I hear something open. The window. I ran over here hoping that it wasn't the window opening, but it was," she finishes. "Maybe you didn't shut it hard enough," Alexis says. "I know I shut it closed," Peyton yells. "Fine, we believe you," I tell her. "I'm scared that someone has broken into the cabin and my eyes weren't playing tricks on me when I saw that thing in the corner of my eye. Maybe, just maybe, if we had taken that seriously, we could have prevented what was to happen next." We all head upstairs and resume our tasks. Alexis says that she wants to go get some fresh air before heading to bed and goes outside. We all just kind of go, and continue doing what we're doing. After about a half hour later, I begin to worry if Alexis is okay. I tell Peyton and Levi, and they also say that they've begun to worry too. We decide that we all go out and see if she's okay. We leave the cabin and begin to call out for her. When she doesn't answer, or after around the 8th time, we begin to really worry. "Belle, I'm hurt. Please help me," I hear my mom's voice in the forest. I nearly ran when I realized that the pitch of her voice was different. It wasn't like an "I'm in pain" pitch, but more different than that. "I fell onto some rocks and now I'm really hurt. Belle, please," I continue to hear. "Do you guys hear my sister asking for help?" Levi asks. "No, but do you hear my mom?" I ask them. "No," they both respond. I begin to get anxious. It doesn't exactly sound like my sister, though. It sounds different. Lower pitched, Levi says. "I hear my mom asking for help. I have to go," I tell them, because my mom sounds like she's on the verge of death. "Is your mom's voice pitched differently?" Levi and Peyton ask. "Yeah," I respond. "I've heard rumors that Wendigos stay in snowy and mountain areas like Colorado," Peyton says. "Wendigos don't exist, Peyton," Levi says. "Yeah, that's probably just some stupid story some parent made up to scare their children into not doing anything dangerous like hiking," I tell her. "You guys know I believe in stuff like Wendigos," she says. I'm leaving," she tells us. "What do you mean you're leaving? We still need to find Alexis," I tell her. "If Wendigos do haunt this area, Alexis is fucking dead, guys," she yells at me. "You're just thinking of saving your ass," Levi says. "So what if I live my life and not die? That's my choice," she yells right back. She begins to storm off. Levi and I agree that she's trying to save her own skin and doesn't care whether or not Alexis died. I notice something that looks like it's feasting on a dead carcass. I look a little bit closer in disgust and realize it's not a carcass. It's a corpse. More than that, it was the corpse of Alexis. Tears silently stream down my face, like when raindrops slide down your window. I tell Levi that we have to run back to the cabin. He asks why, and when I tell him, we try to be as quiet as we can while running to the cabin. Levi accidentally trips on the twig, and the sound of the twig snapping notifies the creature. And when it looks at us, I see its sickly white antlers and weird skull it seems to be wearing. The skull looks like one of those cow skulls they always use in the Wild West themed movies. Lets out a blood-curdling scream and begins to run at us with unnatural speed. That's when I realize what it is. Peyton was right. Wendigos exist, and I was about to be a dead person so this Wendigo could feast on me. I help Levi up and we continue to run. Levi slowed down now due to him hurting his leg when he tripped. I saw the life leave his eyes as he realized he had no hope of surviving, not a string of hope to even look for to hold on to. Nothing. He began to cry, tears streaming down his face, and he just falls to his knees. I always heard stories of how it feels to see someone lose all hope. I would have never felt it would be like this. He looked at me and just gave up. He had nothing to hold on to, nothing to look for, nothing to think about except his death. I saw the Wendigo jump onto Levi and kill him. In Levi's last moments alive, I saw his eyes go from amazing green to lifeless white. I wish I would have been able to help Levi, but I couldn't. I make it back to the cabin when I entered in. I felt little to no hope when I remembered that there was something else in the cabin with us. Then it hit me. When I entered into the cabin, everyone was downstairs except for Peyton. With my nose stuffy, I asked them where Peyton is. They say that they thought she was with me and that she hasn't been back since she left with us. I tried to wipe my tears away because I didn't want to tell them that Levi had died a horrible and brutal death. What happened and where's Levi? Michael asked. He's dead, I say between trembling breaths. He's what? They all ask. Dead, I say again. What? How? Blake asks. I don't think I mentioned this, but Blake was Levi's brother, so to lose Levi must have hurt the most for Blake than it did for any of us. We were walking back and he tripped and he hit his head on a boulder, I lied to them. I didn't want to tell them what actually happened as they probably wouldn't believe me, and it wouldn't be too gruesome to hear. Blake tells us he needs a minute alone and goes to his room. Jessica follows him to comfort him, and Michael says he needs to think. Begin to hear knocks coming from the basement. It's my brother's voice now. It's so cold down here, Belle. The creature lies. It wasn't a human that entered the cabin. Actually, it was far from it. It was a Wendigo and it's hungry. Please open the door, continues to lie. I hear glass breaking from the second floor. I run upstairs and nearly open Blake's door when I hear a freakishly high-pitched scream. Jessica! That was Jessica's scream. I open the door, and the first thing I notice is the broken glass on the floor. Then I turn and see Blake being eaten. That damn Wendigo in the basement was a distraction. I run and try to tell Michael that there's something in the cabin, and we book it. I hear Jessica scream again, but this time, her screams fade out. She's dead. Now it's just me and Michael. I told him to run as fast as he could, and that he'd just leave his crap and head to the car. Even though it was in the snow, we ran for our fucking lives. I saw Wendigo look at me in the forest, and then, if it's even possible, I could have sworn I saw it wink at me. I looked back at the Wendigo was gone. Me and Michael finally made it to our car and went in. I tried to start the car, but it wasn't budging. That's when I saw it. The same Wendigo look at me, blink, then it was gone. Except this time when it disappeared, I heard a bang on top of our car. I tried to start the car as fast as I could, and right before it started, the Wendigo broke the glass next to Michael and tried to grab him. He kept dodging, but the Wendigo figured out his pattern and threw him out of the car. The Wendigo started to feast on Michael as the life in him died. As the life in him died just as it did to Levi. Same terror, same realization, same transition from his eye color to white. The Wendigo looked at me before it stopped feasting and waved. Drove as fast as I could out of that place. All those signs about God make sense now. They were warnings to leave this horrible place. I just didn't care about those warnings and scoffed at them. I made it back to my house and locked all the doors. It's been 19 years and I still can't get those horrific images out of my head. Images of Levi's life being drained away. Images of Jessica screaming to no avail. There's something I didn't mention. When I got home later into the night, I saw something in the roads. It waved at me and then disappeared. Nothing else has happened since that night, but I'm never going back to that cabin. The cops suspected me as the murderer of my friends, but no evidence ever came up as there was no bodies or fingerprints. Please, for dear God, don't ignore the signs in the mountains of Colorado. My friends and I did, and I guess it's a lesson to others to not do the same. Thanks for checking out this video. Please subscribe as I put out new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter at DanScares and Instagram at DanSMachinayT. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.